intelligence gathering aircraft, had a crew of 1. It was a General Dynamics McDonnell Douglas program. Teledyne Ryan was retained as a subcontractor. There was an air intake on both sides of the pilot's compartment, 2 vertical stabilizers that were canted inward toward the center line of the aircraft. And also it's important to note that this particular aircraft was able to operate from carriers. And I did receive a very reliable report from a KC-135 boom operator who in 1991 was refueling 3 particular aircraft. 2 of these were F-117s that took on fuel from the KC-135 boom. When these 2 F-117s broke away, this particular aircraft came up, he took on fuel, and he broke away. So we have his report to go along with a number of other eyewitnesses. Also, it's interesting to note that for every 3 F-117s, there is 1 TR-3A. Now we know there's 59 F-117s built, so that equates to approximately 19 TR-3As currently in the inventory now. Here is the Teledyne Ryan patent, and you can see some of the pattern recognition here. It's the same air intake configuration, the same canted vertical stabilizers, and then the pilot's compartment is located up center in the front. This is the only known article ever printed about something that took place in September of 1994. This is the RAF Boscombe Down crash of a top secret stealth aircraft. It was an American aircraft. All we know is that it suffered some type of malfunction. It might have been the landing gear failed. There was a crew of 2. It looked very similar to the YF-23, which is a Northrop product. It had 2 inward canted vertical stabilizers. The craft was towed back and put inside a hangar, and a tarp was put over the midsection of the aircraft, exposing the nose and the tail section of the aircraft, so that could be seen by eyewitnesses. The next night, a C-5, which is shown over here, was flown in. It was loaded into the C-5, and then everything was shipped back to Air Force Plant 42, Palmdale, and that's the last we ever heard of it. Nothing has ever been said more about this particular aircraft. It might have looked similar to this, a Northrop design called the Astra, with a 75-degree swept wing configuration and 2 inward canted vertical stabilizers. Popular Science talked about America's $1 billion high-flying 4,400-mile-an-hour ramjet. Reports started coming out in the press in the late 1980s that we were phasing out the SR-71. One reason was costs involved in keeping that program alive, and also the idea that we had satellites that could do the job better than a manned reconnaissance aircraft. But that's not consistent with thousands of eyewitness reports of a XB-70-like mothership that's been sighted all over Lancaster, Palmdale area. 2 eyewitness reports of landing at Edwards Air Force Base. It had a very interesting blended forward chine configuration. Also 2 retractable canards for low-speed operation, and then the chine would taper back to a modified delta wing with 16-foot-high winglets at the wingtips. And in Burbank, from this 1992 report, we see something being loaded into the forward section of a C-5. That's what eyewitnesses reported seeing. Some type of very unusual design being loaded into the forward section of the C-5, and that's gives you an idea of what actually took place. This is an A-12 being loaded into the C-5 here. You can see how long this thing was. So what was being loaded was chopped at about right here, and the rest of it was folded and put away. Now, if you took what we have here, the A-12, which first flew in 1962 by Robert Gilliland at the remote test site in Nevada, if you took these engine nacelles and you turn them into box-like structures, put them on the lower surface of the aircraft, then took these verticals and put them on the wing tips, you would have the next generation aircraft known as the M151 TAV, and that's what we're going to consider next here. This is the actual aircraft right here. It's been given the gentleman's nod by Ben Rich, who took over the reins of the Skunk Works back in 1975. You can see here the 2 retractable canards for low-speed operations. Over here we see the pilot, the co-pilot, and the launch control officer. He's the one who is in direct communication with the parasitic aircraft that is launched from the upper surface of the aircraft.